Welcome back, everyone, to the CFC podcast. I'm your host, Steve Letizia, joined by my co-host, Luke O'Grady. Follow us on Twitter at CFC Bears and at Luke O'Grady. We're back after a long hiatus. We kind of took a break after the draft with not a lot going on, but we are finally back with Bears training camp starting next week. Rookies report on Saturday. Veterans report on Tuesday. First practice is on Wednesday. First practice open to the media is on Thursday. So we are back into the thick of things. A lot of stuff to get into. So today we're going to do a training camp preview. Kind of go position by position, who we're looking for, maybe do a little bit of kind of a mini 53-man roster prediction position by position. It's a little too early to tell by that on that stuff, but we'll talk a little bit about that. Training camp battles we're looking forward to seeing, what prospects, what players we're looking forward to see, free agents, all that stuff. We're going to have it all covered today, offense, defense, special teams, everything. So before we get started, Luke, it's been a while. How are things? How are things in Canada? How are you feeling?
Things are good. We had the Canadian winter hung on for a while, so our May was pretty brutal, but now summer's in the swing of things. In Canada, Canadian summers are nice, man. This place starts to really hits its stride. But yeah, like just like you, man, I've been kind of off the Twitter the last little bit, not really paying much attention to the Bears stuff. I was saying to you before we started this that like this time in the off season can be really torturous as like a really diehard fan, because you're just like looking for any little bit of like content you can get, or like any little stat, and it's like none of it really matters. Like the change that the Chicago Bears see from August 12th, from that first preseason game, or like even when they report to camp from like the end of the draft, is so little, especially when if there was a signing or if there was a trade, maybe that would be worth the conversation. But so little changes in that time that it's honestly so much better this is like your time to kind of like not torture yourself, because if you're looking for it during that time, man, it is like the longest off seasons. It makes the off season so much longer. To kind of like click off for a couple of months before and tune back in makes this like dead period of the off season a little easier. But now we're like, what are we, 4 days away when the rookies report, something like that?
Yeah, 4 days away. We'll start getting some reports probably on Saturday on who's reporting, who's in the best shape of their lives. Yeah, we're finally through the part of the offseason where everything gets overblown. Right after the draft, that you have the workouts and every little thing is like, this guy's going to be a superstar, or this guy's going to be a bust based on a off-season workout video. So I'm excited to actually talk about real football, as real as we're going to get right now, training camp, as we build up into the preseason and eventually the regular season.
Totally. Not all just right, so what at the Blackhawks game. Whoa.
What was that?
It's like not just who was seen at the Blackhawks game.
Yeah.
Crazy. Cole Kmet went to a Blackhawks game.
The wide receivers and Justin Fields are training, and Chase Claypool isn't there. Oh my god! So yeah, it'll be nice to get some real reports once training camp gets rolling around. Seriously. So, what do you say we get started here? Before we get into it, we have we're back with a new sponsor. 366 Golf is the new official sponsor of CFC Podcast. It's a brand that I actually personally use, so I'm really excited to work with them. This is actually a 366 quarter zip. I've been buying their shit for years now, so I'm really happy to work with them. But use promo code CFC at checkout for a 15% discount on all apparel. I'll put the link in the description as well. But they have some great stuff: polos, shorts, quarter zips. They have collarless polos that I wear from time to time when I golf. I know Luke and I are both big golfers. So if you're a golfer,
polo too is the fire. That's the cheat code.
Yep. So make sure to go to 366.com, use CFC at checkout. And it's a great way to support the show and also get some awesome gear.
Yeah. Yeah. Golf season just dialing in. I played 27 holes today, believe it or not.
Ooh, nice. How'd you hit them?
That was good. I shot an 89 and then I shot a 39 when I played 9, which was good. I shot a 50 on the front 9 when I shot the 89, so it was a really good rally for me.
Yeah, that is a rally. I shot an 83 the other day, which is my best score ever. So
nice.
Things are looking up.
Yeah. It's a good summer of golf.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks. This one's pretty obvious.
All right, let's get into it. This one's easy.
So yeah, for what you guys are looking at here, we've kind of the people that we think are a lock, the people that we think are very likely to make the team, and then the people that could be on the chopping block, and then in the top right there beside the logo. Last year, that shows you how many we kept in the roster. So a little bit of an idea of what Eberflus and Poles' roster building strategy looks like. year over year,
Right.
usually this tends to be similar if head coaches and GMs stay the same. Other than like big philosophy changes, usually they have an idea of how many of each body they want to carry, how many backup linemen, how many backup like tackles in particular, things like that. So we're just
Right.
giving you a little idea of making it a little bit easier to frame what we might see as the final 53-man roster come September. Although I think, was there a rule now where it's like you get
Yep.
a backup QB?
I was just going to mention that. So they did keep 2 last year. I would expect, based on this rule change, most teams will probably keep 3 on their
Right.
53 because the rule is if both you you can keep if you have 3 quarterbacks on your 53-man roster, you have 2 of them active on game day. So let's say the Bears have Justin Fields and PJ Walker active on game day, Nathan Peterman on the 53-man roster. If both Fields and Walker get hurt, Nathan Peterman can come in and he doesn't count towards he's technically inactive on game day, but he can still play if those 2 quarterbacks get hurt.
Yep.
So it's basically like a free roster spot. So I would expect most teams will probably keep 3 quarterbacks, and I think in the Bears will do the same. Obviously, Fields is a lock. PJ Walker seems like a lock as the backup. I'm guessing Peterman will be that 3rd guy just because he has the experience. And if you're going to keep a 3rd guy in your roster, you probably want a veteran. If if he's playing, you're not winning any games anyway.
Right.
So at least have the veteran presence there who can help Fields in the QB room and everything like that. Although they do have Tyson Badgett, who they signed as an undrafted free agent. I expect him to get some reps in camp. Maybe he beats out Peterman. Maybe he shows something, but I do expect it probably to be Fields, PJ Walker, and then Peterman in that order come the start of the season.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are pretty excited about Badgett. Well, not like excited, but off-season excited, we'll call it. He had some good college tape, and he didn't go to the biggest schools. He's got a nice arm, and I think that he'd have to play and impress and have like good character to, like you said, bump Peterman from the spot. But he strikes me as someone that could definitely come back on the practice squad.
For sure, yeah, practice squad guy, yeah, but that's probably all he ever will be. But maybe he can develop into a backup quarterback down the road.
Yeah, and then I think this is bang on. I think the 2 active on game day would probably be Fields and PJ Walker. Walker has a little bit of experience with Moore, which I think they.
Oh, he froze, I think, Luke.
But my only note on it is I think the new quarterback rule.
You're breaking up a little bit, Luke. I'm kind of losing you.
If you happen to get the 2 injuries,
can you hear me?
Yeah.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Am I?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Kind of lost a lot of that, but I think it kind of got the gist of what you were saying.
Yeah, I was just saying the chaos of if you get 2 quarterback injuries and they're like, well, yeah, you know what? Actually, the quarterback's going to be Deebo Samuel if he goes down. You're like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, so we don't have that situation where you have a backup running back starting in the playoffs like the 49ers had last year.
Yeah, exactly. I know, and usually that is what it takes to get NFL rules changed. It's like moments in games where people go, okay, this can't happen again.
Right. All right, you ready to move on to running backs?
I'd say.
I think so. Before I click on the next slide, I think this is my only maybe somewhat controversial opinion, and it's not even probably that controversial. So I have the locks as Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson, and Kari Blasingame. They kept 3 running backs last year, 1 fullback. I think Blasingame is pretty much a lock. The only reason I say this is a little controversial is I have Dante Foreman in the probable, only because I think he's just. I was kind of thinking about this today, and I think him and just Khalil Herbert are just so redundant. They do the same things well, and they have the same weaknesses. And if Roshan Johnson is the running back that we think he can be, and he starts eating into touches,
not a whole lot
it's going to be not a whole lot of them out there. So and I think Travis Homer provides a lot more special teams value
and third down value.
Much better pass blocker, much better pass catcher. So he's going to get some touches too, assuming he makes the team, which I think he will. So I don't know. I just don't know if there's going to be enough rushing attempts to go around between Herbert, Foreman, and Johnson. Another thing I realized today is that they actually signed Travis Homer to a bigger contract than they did Dante Foreman.
Really?
It was a 2-year, $4 million for Homer, 1 year, $2 million for Foreman. So I guess it was kind of similar, but more guaranteed to Homer. So I think in the end they do end up keeping those 4 running backs and Blasingame. So 1 more running back than they did last year. But I don't think Dante Foreman is that much of is I couldn't put him in the lock. I think he will make the team, but I think there is a scenario where maybe he wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're dead on here. The coaching staff loves Blasting game, and there's like good evidence that when he was on the field, the Bears were better last year. So I think he's a lock. Johnson, obviously a lock, 4th-round pick, really talented player. You know, a lot of people thought that just because he was behind Bijan Robinson, he could have gone a lot higher if he had a full workload. And obviously Herbert, you know, he was our best running back last year by far, one of the better, more efficient running backs in the NFL. You could say a similar thing about Foreman as well, but I think I'd agree if maybe they decide to go 3 running backs and a fullback like they did last year, there's a chance it could be Homer. I don't think they'd want to leave themselves without something as a sure thing on 3rd down, and I think Homer offers that more than Foreman does.
For sure.
And yeah, it really does look like probably the end of the line for Ebner, doesn't it? He really caught on. I think he's a good example of why you just consistently take shots at backs in those later rounds. Because, you know, for every Ebner, you may get a Herbert or a Jordan Howard or a Tarek Cohen, but that's just, you know, it's low risk, high reward. And this is one of those like low risk situations. You know, he just really panned out.
Yeah, I mean, he was a 6th-round pick, 6th or 7th-round pick, so you're not going to hit on all of them. I think he kind of is what he is. Probably be come back on the practice squad in case, he's probably kind of somewhat Travis Homer insurance. So if Travis Homer gets injured, you can bring him up and he can be a 3rd down guy. But yeah, as a runner, he doesn't really provide much. But you got Herbert, Foreman, and Johnson who are going to get a lot of rushing attempts. Yeah. So I think Travis Homer, I almost put him in the lock because of his 3rd down value. The Bears don't really have a guy who does this, who has the same skill set as Homer. Herbert's not that guy. Foreman's not that guy. Roshan Johnson might be that guy, but we just don't know yet.
Yeah.
So I think he's
pretty close to a lot. I think a lot of people have made a lot about Foreman, just especially because he kind of did turn it on to Carolina as the year went on. But I think with the contract size that he got, there's no reason that he's a lock for the team in the fall, especially when you look at they kept 3 running backs and a fullback last year. I think that because of that, obviously Herbert and Johnson are locks, and because of Homer's 3rd down value, I just don't know if you can rely on Herbert or Johnson to be a 3rd down back right now. And if you're going to need one, I'd lean Homer probably a little more than Foreman.
Yeah, and the other thing is that Dante Foreman doesn't provide any special teams value either. He has 17 special team snaps in his entire career.
Oh, really?
So it's like, I mean, Homer had 200 something special team snaps last season. Yeah. So he's a consistent special. I mean, if you're going to keep a 3rd, 4th running back, they have to provide some special teams value. And that's tough to ask Foreman to start doing that at age 27, just start playing special teams.
Yeah, I tell you what, you're selling me. I mean, I would have kind of said maybe he was lock city for getting the spot, but
I originally,
especially at your 3rd running back spot, you need a lot more than someone that can run the ball. And while Foreman is a good runner of the football and probably should be on a roster if he's not on the Bears, I think the Bears like what they have in Herbert and Johnson. The Bears have been raving about Johnson since he walked in the building. And I think we've made the case for Homer at this point. I don't think it'd be crazy if maybe they changed up. Instead of going 7 wide receivers, they do 6 or something like that and maybe carry 4 running backs. But as it stands, I think, if they were going to go 3, I would lean Homer.
Yeah, and it's funny because I originally had him in the lock. I put him there like just instinctually, and then I really started thinking about it more. I was like, is he an extra lock? So I felt, again, I do think he makes the roster, but there is it a lot depends on what Roshan Johnson does in preseason. Yeah, if he's looking like he's coming out of college and is the real deal, then he's cutting into Foreman's carries already, and if Foreman's not getting carries, there's no reason to have him on the roster. Because he doesn't provide any value anywhere else. So
no, I mean, if your running back room was Herbert, Homer, and Blasting game, you'd feel pretty okay about that. Just based on how good Herbert looked last year. Adding Johnson to that room makes it a strong room alone, and having Foreman there is like, man, that really is an embarrassment of riches. There's a lot of good ways that could look. I'd be surprised if Foreman got cut. I think in the end he'll probably sneak in and maybe they'll just go 4 with a fullback this year. But like I said, and to your point, I think if there was a chance where they only keep 3, he could be the odd man out.
Certainly possible. But yeah, I do think they end up keeping 4.
Yeah, I mean, as far as locks go, no way you could call Foreman a lock.
No, right, exactly. I think the top 3 are locks for sure, and then Ebner and Burns is a full undrafted free agent fullback. He's probably not making the roster, but maybe he's a practice
camp body.
Yeah, good camp body. Yep. All right, wide receiver. So last year they kept 7. So that, if they keep 4 running backs, they probably would only keep 6 wide receivers. So a lot depends on the other positions as well.
Yeah.
But I feel like the locks are pretty obvious. Moore, Moody, Claypool, obviously locks. Then I had Equanimeous St. Brown, Tyler Scott, and Velus Jones in the probable, but not necessarily a lock. With Dante Pettis, Nasimba Webster, and Darius Fountain kind of battling it out with some long shots in there as well. But so if they do keep 6, then obviously I feel like that's a pretty straightforward 6. I mean, maybe Pettis could edge out Velus Jones, but I just don't know if they're ready to give up on Velus Jones yet.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I actually think if I were to make this, because some of these I'm seeing now for the first time, I think first off, I don't think there's any way that Tyler Scott's not on the roster. I would say he's lock.
Okay, I could get behind that.
But I was pleasantly surprised with how Velus Jones came on near the end of last season, and if you look at the way that Equanimeous St. Brown's contract is set up, the Bears could get out of that tomorrow for no money down. So I actually think if I were to my likelihood is that if someone were to get cut, honestly, between St. Brown and Pettis, my feeling is that they'd actually lean to keeping Pettis.
Okay.
Now St. Brown is probably I know that the Bears like that big body receiver, and they had a lot of them last year. You have it in Claypool, but I could understand if they keep him for that reason. He's a good blocker. He'd be a good special teamer as well. But Jones, you could put Tyler Scott at return, but Jones is probably penciled in right now as the return guy for kickoffs and probably punts until unless he proves he hasn't been able to fix his hand situation. And if you can manufacture 2 to 3 touches for him a game, he honestly did look genuinely explosive with the ball in his hand last year when he wasn't dropping it. He really did rip off plays at a good clip. I don't think the Bears give up on Jones. I don't know if he's a lock, but I would be more inclined to think that Pettis makes the roster over St. Brown. I'm just not sure that St. Brown. Well, I mean, it's tough. I think I think all I would do, the only thing I would change is I would move St. Brown down to cuttable.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I probably would too. You're probably right. He probably should be in that lower tier. That's a good point. I think he does end up making the roster. But yeah, he probably would. I mean, he's very easily cuttable. And I think he's definitely he should definitely be in a different tier than Tyler Scott and Velus Jones.
I guess, honestly, a good way to set it up, too, being that, we can see that the number last year was 7. If you were to move Tyler Scott up to the lock and Pettis up to the green, I think that would be the most likely 7. I don't think there's any chance right now that there's another 7 that makes it. If Nasimba Webster made it over any of the guys on the roster now, that would be a shock.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. If they do keep 7, there's your 7. No questions asked. But yeah, if they keep 6, then I think it is kind of between St. Brown and Dante Pettis for sure. Yeah. So maybe Scott and Jones should maybe even be in the lock territory. But yeah, that's definitely true. The only reason I would give the edge to St. Brown is because you kind of mentioned it, the big body receiver. I view Dante Pettis, Tyler Scott, and Velus Jones. They all similar body type, similar skill set.
Yeah,
St. Brown is a little bit more, a more traditional X wide receiver back up to Chase Claypool.
Yeah,
kind of situation. So, but
too, he came with Getsy from Green Bay.
Yeah,
things like that are definitely helpful. But
go ahead. I'll say this though, I really love how we're having this conversation about who to cut between Equanimeous St. Brown and Dante Pettis, because last year we were talking about which one of them was going to be wide receiver 2. So I really like that we're having the conversation of which one should we keep and which one should we cut.
Now looking at the people that I would consider a lock, the room of Moore, Mooney, Claypool, and Scott is really from where we were last year at the beginning of the year to now is adding more to that room just made everything better. The only reason I don't think I could put Jones in the lock is if he comes to camp and he looks bad and he doesn't look like he's developed. I don't think it's impossible that he could get cut.
No, I don't think so either.
There's a world where he gets cut. I think it's really unlikely. But if he shows maybe he's regressed or for whatever, maybe he's out of shape or he has problems dropping the ball still, they could think, hey, Tyler Scott could probably do all the return stuff. He has experience doing it in college. And if we having some special teams, having that big receiver, having some familiarity with the offense, they could cut ties. It wouldn't be insane to cut ties with Jones this quick. I think this organization has done a good job of just acknowledging when they're wrong and moving on. like, making the trade for Claypool and then saying, okay, he wasn't the difference maker we wanted. If we're going to make a big trade, we're willing to, for a big portion of that capital, be another receiver as well, because we have to address that.
Sure.
I don't think that it would be insane for them 2 years in to say, you know what, maybe it just wasn't the best fit, Bayless, even though he was a 3rd-round pick 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's not even so much, even if he comes in and he doesn't really develop as a receiver much, as long as he's catching punts, like I think he makes the roster. As long as he's not turning the ball over on special teams, I think he makes the roster just based on special teams value.
I'd honestly like to see down the stretch last year. He was probably one of the better kick returners in the league. He was seriously like every time he touched the ball, I thought he was getting us to the 30 or 40-yard line.
Yeah, I'm excited about what he can do as a special teams returner.
I agree.
Wide receiver, I don't think he's going to be anything ever more than a manufactured touch guy who maybe get a few touches a game. But as a returner, I think he still has some value. So I still think he makes the roster. So I think we're kind of in agreement. The top 5 are pretty much locked in: Moore, Mooney, Claypool, Scott, Jones, and then it's a battle between Dante Pettis and St. Brown for that last spot.
If they keep 7, it'll probably be those 2 guys. I mean, the Bears still have some money. It's something we'll probably talk about more when we get to like the defensive end or defensive tackle situation. We're definitely going to be monitoring cuts and things like that in camp, because not only the Bears have the first overall pick this year, but they also, because they came last, have the first waiver priority, I think, until the start of the season. So the Bears will have their pick of the litter of free agents if some cuts get made. And this could be a group maybe you look at. But if it isn't, I'd imagine that St. Brown and Pettis are the people that kind of are that 6 and 7 spot.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last year. What did they claim? 6 guys off waivers last year? Yeah. I don't think they're going to have that amount because the roster is considerably better. But I guarantee you they're claiming 1 or 2 guys for sure after first cut downs. All right, move on to tight end. You ready?
Yep.
All right, so this one I thought was pretty straightforward. So they kept 3 last year. I counted Jake Tongas as a tight end. He kind of played fullback tight end, but I counted him as a tight end. So Komet, Tanyan, obviously locks. I didn't have anyone in the probable, and then I think it just comes down to Tongas and Chase Allen, and kind of just batting out for that 3rd spot. They probably will keep one of them. This could be another position where they kind of scour the waiver wire for, maybe get a more of a blocking tight end. They had what's his name last year? I'm blanking on his name. From the Jets, who they claimed as their blocking tight end. They don't really have a guy on the roster who's like one of that traditional blocking tight ends. So I think that might be a position where they kind of look to upgrade there. Otherwise, one of these 2nd-year undrafted free agent guys might take that last spot.
Yeah. I think if one of them makes it, it's probably Tongas, just because he's been he's been in and around the team a little bit longer. But this is a pretty good example of where that group is at right now. Komet and Tanyan are going to be your playmakers, the people that are ever going to be included in how the offense works. And just for probably the depth of the position, Tongas or Allen will probably make the roster at the moment if you were projecting. But I agree, this could be something where the Bears look outside to bring in one more body to fill out that room, and in a manner that maybe they're a little bit more comfortable with.
Yeah, I'd really love a veteran in this room, another veteran in this room as a blocker. Just someone who can, because we know they're not going to have the same offense they had last year because they have considerably more weapons and better offensive line, but they're still going to run the ball a good amount, probably more than we want them to. So having a good blocking tight end, I think, would really help them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that people are underrating the Tanyan signing. I think he's going to be a really good player. I think he is a really good player, and I think that they can scheme some stuff for him, and he can make some plays if given the opportunity. Mm-hmm. But I don't think, for sure. I think, like you said, if you add one more veteran to that room, it really solidifies that unit and kind of gives it its identity.
That's a good way to put it, for sure. But otherwise, I think this is not pretty straightforward because you got Komet and Tanya, and even if they do bring a 3rd guy, he's probably going to be a blocking tight end. None of those, Tongas, Allen, whoever they bring in, are not going to make a huge difference on things. So I think we can kind of skip past this one pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Oops. Offensive line. So this is another one I think is relatively straightforward. I have the 5 starters as locks. Jones, Jenkins, Whitehair, Davis, and Wright. Then I have Larry Borum, Jatira Carter, and Lucas Patrick as probable. I could be convinced that maybe Patrick could be cut, but I do think he provides value at both center and guard as a backup. I don't love him as a starter, but as a backup, you could do a lot worse. And then they kept 9 last year, so that's 8 right there. So then I think you got it kind of fighting out between the rest of the guys. Um, Alex Leatherwood didn't really show much when he got his opportunity, although he didn't play a lot of snaps. Maybe an offseason, with the coaching staff can do him good, but otherwise, I don't. It's between probably him and Iceland. Maybe Deesh Kramer. I don't see a lot of potential in. I know some people do, but I didn't really see it with him.
Yeah.
So it depends on what they want. So you got Borum as your swing tackle, Carter and Patrick on the inside. They only kept 3 tackles last year, and maybe that's because they view Jenkins as a guy who can kick out to tackle in a pinch. But they only kept 3 tackles, so I don't know kind of what direction they would go this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have heard like some people say that they're pretty high on Kramer. I know they kept him even after the injury, so that it must mean that they like the kid. Yeah. I don't think that necessarily means that he makes the roster, but I think like you said about last year they kept 3 tackles and the rest to look inside if they're gonna if it's gonna be inside, like it could be Kramer. He can probably play any position along those 3, although he probably fits in best as well, like center.
Yeah, he's a center only guy. That's the only thing with him. It's like if he's not starting, then he's your backup center, and you don't see a lot of backup center only guys. So it's tough for a guy like that to crack the 53.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Leatherwood, just on that first round kind of evaluation alone, they'll probably get his chance to like start out ahead in the coaching staff's eyes above Eastland and Deesh. But this could be another group where they monitor the cut, the wire, and just see if maybe there's some good quality depth that makes it to free agency.
For sure, yeah. Maybe even bring in a veteran too, just someone because I think that starting 5 I think could be a pretty solid offensive line.
I agree,
but I think the depth is very lacking.
I know. So, last year around like August, they brought in
Riley Reef and Michael Schofield.
Yeah. I think a move like that probably wouldn't surprise me too much before the season starts.
Just some competition. If you don't have to, you're most likely not going to sign a guy who's going to come in and compete for a starting spot, or you're going to sign a guy maybe he can back up, and if he doesn't work out, you cut him and you don't lose anything. But just bringing in some extra competition is never a bad thing, especially along the offensive line. So yeah, a guy like Riley Reef, Michael Schofield, someone who's a veteran. Sometimes those veterans who know they're going to be backups don't sign right away. They wait for maybe an injury to happen, or they just wait for training camp because they don't want to go through that whole offseason. So there's still some guys who are available that they can maybe bring in. But I'm excited to watch this group in training camp into the preseason. I'm really excited about Donald Wright. Obviously, we've talked a lot about him post-draft. I want to see Braxton Jones' development. That's going to be key. How does Tevin Jenkins adjust to the left side, coming from the right side? Then that's something to kind of monitor.
Whoa.
Yeah. I was watching some Nate Davis tape the other day, and he's, he looked pretty good. So I'm excited to see him too. How does Cody Whitehair hold up at center? It's been a long time since he's played center. He's obviously done it in the past, but it's been at guard for the last 3 years. So a lot to kind of watch with this offensive line unit. With training camp, it's hard to judge offensive linemen. There's a lot of non-contact practices. Even the contact practices aren't always full speed. But in the preseason, you can kind of get a better idea. I'm actually there's not a guy on this list who I'm not really intrigued by at least like a little bit. Even some of the long shots like Gabe Hoy. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right from Pittsburgh. Huey, however you pronounce it. I really liked him in college, so I'm excited to kind of see him. So it's an interesting group for sure, and I think it's come a long way from last year where we were like, okay, there's a couple guys on here who might have some talent. Now it's like, okay, we got 5 guys here who are NFL caliber offensive linemen, and hopefully they can take a next step beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you compare this to the wide receiver group last year, we didn't think was very strong at all, and now we can confidently say that it's got it's really well rounded. Like we have a strong wide receiver group. The offensive line is like last year, we didn't really think we had the pieces to put together a good offensive line. This year, we actually might. But I don't think it's as sure as I feel about the wide receiver group, which is why I'd say that this group is probably the most important group of the year. if they come to play and they mesh well, and early this looks like a strong unit, the Bears could be really, really, really good on offense. Like like we know they have a strong running back room. We know that Justin Fields, like if you give him the time and protect him, he can be a really, really dangerous player. And like I just said, I'm very confident in that receiver room. So the crux of that would be this unit. If they do play good, watch out.
For sure, 100% agree. I like the way you put that. I think they're going to be better, but I'm not as confident as the wide receiver room. Like I know the wide receiver room is going to be better. I think the offensive line is going to be better.
Yeah.
And I think a lot depends on the two tackles, Wright and Jones.
Yep,
Jones has to be better than he was last year, and Wright has to kind of come in and not have that rookie adjustment period, or have a very short rookie adjustment period the first couple weeks or something like that.
It actually it does, like, to get a little bit more granular, of the group, probably the most important group on the team. Of that group, Jones probably the most important player, because if Jones can ascend to being an actual like starting tackle that you can leave on an island and you can trust, it allows Wright to be a rookie to some extent. We can give him help. If he's still a liability, then that offensive line could start to look a lot more susceptible to some stuff. So
for sure,
this is probably the most important group to watch, just as far as how the season could differ if they're good versus they're bad. And I would say that, the 8 that we have there are probably locks, honestly, to some extent. You could see Borum getting cut, but there's no clear option where else they would go. They're probably going to add a veteran to that room, but as it stands, the ones that you have there, like, that's a pretty good outlook of what it'll look like.
I think so. I think those 8 are pretty locked in. And then it's between like Leatherwood, Iceland, Deach, Kramer, and then maybe if they bring in a veteran or something like that. But
Leatherwood made a comment that he'd be willing to play anywhere on the offensive line too. So that's probably like a little bit of a feather in his cap as far as when they're thinking about who to keep.
Yeah, he's the big wild card here, because he could be out of the league, at the start of the year, or he could be maybe a solid backup. Like I think there's a big range of outcomes, I think, with him. He was a former first-round pick. So
exactly, and that'll carry a lot of value in NFL circles for a while. There's some good data to show that more than any other position, or more than any other round, like if you get drafted in the first round and your play is bad, that you get more of a break than any other position in the draft. So he'll probably hang around because of that. And, the reason that you hang them around is because you get drafted in the first round because you have those traits. And if you can put them together, he probably could make the roster at the very least. But he's probably hoping to himself that he finds a way to start for this team.
Yeah, definitely. That would be a pleasant surprise.
Absolutely.
If that happens and he pushes, I don't know who he'd push out of the starting lineup, but even if he just makes it an interesting decision, that would be a very welcome sign. All right, defense. You want to move on to defense now?
Defense.
All right, start with defensive tackle. So this one I thought was pretty easy. They kept 4 last year, and they have 4 locks in my mind. You got Andrew Billings, who they signed from the Raiders, Justin Jones, who was their starter last year, Gervin Dexter, who was their second-round pick, and Zach Pickens, who was their third-round pick. I don't see any way. There's no one else on the roster I would put even in the conversation.
No, that might be the easiest one. Those are the guys.
Yeah, I think this was.
There's no doubt Dexter and Pickens are going to be the guys. They were early draft picks. The Bears, I think they took them back-to-back, correct?
Yeah.
No. Oh, no. Was Tyreek Stevenson snuck in there, maybe?
Man, I can't remember. That seems like it was ages ago. But they were both high draft picks, so they're making the roster. Yeah,
Jones is captain on the team, and Billings was a fairly high-profile free agent signing. I'm assuming that DeMarcus Walker probably got put to edge.
Yeah, I put him at edge because that's where they have him listed.
Perfect. And then, I don't even – there are some names in the cut that I haven't even seen before, so that shows you how deep the rabbit hole kind of goes there. The 4 that you have are definitely locks, and if they only kept 4, I don't think there should be any, surprises here.
Yeah, and especially with DeMarcus Walker, I think is going to be playing inside a lot. There's no reason to carry. There's no reason to carry 5 true defensive tackles when you're going to have those guys move around. I will say, if we're just talking about training camp and guys I'm looking forward to seeing, I do want to see Travis Bell. He was their 6th-round draft pick or something.
I think we had 2 7th, and I think he was the first.
He was one of the 7th. Yeah, and I never really heard of him. But the way that Ryan Poles spoke about him,
man.
He was just raving about him. So They
He said he was one of
absolutely
the
love
most
him.
special humans he's ever met.
Right.
And I
So
tell you what, his tape is fun. His tape is fun. It's against bad competition, which hurts, and he didn't test amazingly. But,
right.
like, he's probably of that group. I agree. He's going to be a fun one to watch, just to monitor.
Yeah, I don't think he makes the team. I think he's practice squad by probably just because, looking at the numbers and everything, the way it looks out. But I'm just excited to watch him because the way Poles talked about him. Hopefully, I mean, he's going to play in the preseason games. I want to see. He's going to be going up against second, third stringers most likely. I want to just see what he can do, and hopefully, maybe he's a practice squad guy you stash, and then maybe next year Justin Jones doesn't come back and he gets makes 53. But guy I'm excited to watch there.
He's got an exciting play style. So if he could flash, man, who knows?
Yeah. All right. So now moving on to defensive end. This is just kind of depressing to look at, to be honest. I put DeMarcus Walker and Dominic Robinson in the lock. Yeah. Travis Gibson and Rashawn Green in the probable, although I could have easily put them into the locks. I think they kept 4 last year. I'm pretty sure that's year 4. Unless they bring in someone from the outside, which is certainly a possibility.
Yeah, I think you could probably put Green in the lock just because they just committed to him. There's a chance that maybe they're a little bit disappointed in what they've got from Gibson the last 2 years. So I agree. I think that he's definitely not lock category. And we said it earlier, this is another one of those groups that very likely the Bears will be looking to add some competition to in one way or another. If it's not a free agency or a cut, there's been rumblings that the Bears are still trying to trade some of their capital to add a pass rusher. Through that avenue. And if that's the case, of the 4 you have listed there, I think Gibson would probably be the odd man out. Robinson's probably flashed a little more, and he's only 1 year into his contract with us. So did we be expecting him to take a bit of a step? Gibson, he did the opposite. He had a really nice rookie year, kind of like Robinson, and he kind of took a step back last year. So I think if someone had to get parted with, the Bears probably would be looking at Gibson as the odd man out in this group.
Right. Yeah, unless they decided to keep 5 for whatever reason if they brought someone else in. But I'm still a Travis Gibson believer. I think he can be a good situational pass rusher. I think he got miscast as a starting defensive end, but a guy you could just bring in on passing downs. And I think he'll have more juice if he's not playing as much. And I think that's where he succeeded as a rookie. I think that's what his role is. So I still believe in him. DeMarcus Walker, obviously he was the lock. He's going to be playing D tackle a lot too. Honestly, I prefer him as a D tackle. I think he's a better player there, but just given what they have, just given what they have though, you almost have to play him on the end. And then with Robinson, I put them a lock because he didn't really do much last year outside of like a week 1 fluke, but he was drafted as a project, a pretty huge project. And you're not going to give up.
Quarterback, wasn't he, or something?
Yeah, it was a quarterback, then a wide receiver, then switched to defensive end for like 2 years. So drafting him knowing he was such a huge project, you don't give up on him after 1 year. I don't know if he's ever going to develop into anything, but I think he at best he's solid depth. And then
crazy how good he looked to be one last year. It really was crazy.
He beat 2 sacks.
Yeah, he beat Trent Williams clean. I mean, clean is relative. Everybody was playing on a slop field, but he did look really good. I think he had like 2.5 sacks week 1, and I think he finished the season with 2.5 sacks.
Yep, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened.
But no, I think we're in agreement here. If someone were to probably get the axe, it would be Gibson. As it stands, those 4 are definitely going to make it over the guys you have listed there. But this would be a group I would watch the Bears to try and add some talent desperately because this is the worst. This is the worst position group on the team.
Yeah, this is bad. This could be I think this is the worst defensive end group, edge group, whatever you want to call it, in the NFL. Pretty confident about that.
Seriously.
I don't know I haven't looked at every single roster, but I'd be surprised if there was a position group worse than this.
So we're big Bears fans, so we know. But if you showed 99% of football fans this defensive line group or defensive end group, they'd hit you with that Conor McGregor meme. Like they would have no idea who any of these guys are.
Yeah, right. Bears fans know them obviously, but the average fan of just an NFL team.
Tom Robinson, Travis Gibson, DeMarcus Walker,
maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely keep an eye out. Maybe either a veteran. Hopefully, I'm hoping for a veteran. But otherwise, they do have the first waiver wire claim. So if a promising young guy gets cut with maybe some potential, they could bring him in.
I will say, Green has some stuff. he was only used, I think, situationally last year, but I was actually really happy with that signing from the Bears. I think he adds a little bit to that group, and I think he can, if he's asked not to be a starter, maybe like we said earlier with like the Travis Gibson thing, if he's not asked to be the starter and he can be in a rotation, I think he got some juice.
Yeah, I think Gibson, Green, Robinson are all players who you'd be happy with as like your third or fourth guy. But when they're one of those guys that has to be a starter, that's when it gets a little bit rough.
Yeah.
And then now, if we're looking at some of the guys I put in the training camp battle tier, Terrell Lewis was a former Alabama pass rusher who had some potential. Apparently, he stood out in OTAs. I saw some tweets about him. So maybe he's the guy to maybe look out for. D'Anthony Jones was a pass rusher from Houston, a guy I really liked, undrafted free agent. But maybe he has something there. I don't think he's going to be anything special, but maybe he can be a practice squad guy. And then Jalen Harris was from undrafted free agent from Arizona, also a guy who maybe has some potential as kind of just more of an athlete. It's kind of Jones is more of a technician. Harris is more of just a straight athlete. So maybe one of those guys can crack the practice squad and turn it into something down the road. But definitely keep an eye out for a free agent to be brought in.
Agreed.
All right. Linebacker. Now, this is the most changed position for the Bears this year. It went from a position of great weakness last year, once we traded Roquan Smith, to probably a position of strength now. Obviously, Terrell Edmonds, TJ Edwards, and Jack Sanborn I have in the lock. They kept six last year.
If you actually are still under the naive impression that the Bears will be walking out with 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers all the time, our 3 linebackers, I honestly think, are the best starting 3 linebackers in football.
You could make the argument. Sure.
You could argue San Fran, and it's a good argument, but Edmonds and Edwards are honestly 2 top 10 like inside linebackers in the NFL, and Sanborn has flashed a lot. He's like Sanborn is so I'm so optimistic about him because he has like almost never played bad, despite the fact that he was an undrafted rookie and had every reason to look like he was a fish out of water. But that being said, the Bears run their nickel almost 80% of the time. Almost always there'll be 2 linebackers on the field, and that'll be Edmonds and Edwards. When one of them has to take a spell and you get Sanborn on there, I think that's still fine. And yeah, I think the guys that you have, if you assume they're keeping 6, this might be one where they decide maybe only to go with 5 this year, just because they have so much more trust in the guys that they have. And if that's the case, I think they'd probably lean Weatherford and Sewell. Just because he's a rookie and Weatherford played a couple snaps for us last year and was pretty good.
Yeah. So with linebackers, a position where you might tend to keep more players because it's a position that plays a lot of special teams.
Yeah.
So the reason I have Dylan Cole is kind of that first guy is because he's a special teams guy. Like he signed to be a special teams guy. So I think he does crack it. And then Noah Sewell, obviously the rookie, just being a rookie, he has a kind of a leg up on some rookie draft pick. He has a leg up on some of those guys below him. And then Sterling Weatherford did play a little bit last year. So I think special teams, it really comes into play at certain positions. I think linebackers one, running back is a position that, special teams values, wide receiver, cornerback, those positions, you tend to keep more guys just because they play special teams.
Yeah.
So I think maybe they do go 5. It certainly could possibly go 5, and then in which case you got those 3, and I think you go probably Cole, and then it's between Weatherford and Sewell. To be honest,
I don't think there's any way that we lose Sewell this year. It would be such a sunk cost for what ended up being like a 4th round pick for us.
I think he was a 5th round pick, but I can't remember. Could have been a 4th. Could have been
either way. You know what I mean? It would surprise me if they moved on that quickly. Now, to be fair, I don't love his play style, and he may come to camp, and the Bears may think they just don't really have a position for him. But he's got some stuff, and if you're okay with him being on the field, maybe being a touch slower, he can wreak havoc from a stand-up pass rush point of view, and he's a thumper. The fact that they just spent draft capital on him, I would be shocked if he doesn't make it. But if they do go with 6, and I kind of agree with you now that you say it about like the special teams opportunities, it's looking like these would be the 6. I mean, it doesn't help that I honestly don't even know if I've ever seen any of the names on the cut list.
Yeah, I mean, Jamarcus Gates flashed a little bit in preseason last year, but yeah, the other guys, I think Baskerville is a rookie. I don't know who Dang is, to be honest. So yeah, I think the 6 are pretty much locked in there.
Yeah.
All right.
DB, corner.
I got it separated into the cornerback and safety. So again, they kept 6 last year, and if they keep 6 again this year, I feel like it's pretty straightforward. Maybe, obviously Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, and Kyle Gordon, I think are rocks. I put Terrell Smith in the lock, mostly based on just kind of who they have. He was a fifth round pick, I'm pretty sure, this past season, but they don't really have anyone else that I'm really excited about. Kendall Vildor kind of is what he is, good depth, and then Josh Blackwell. He played really well in special teams last year, so that's another reason.
Honestly, he played really well on defense when he got his chance to play too. I'm glad that you put Blackwell in the check over Jones, because Jones would probably be the more the more popular choice in this situation, just because he's been on the team longer and has probably played more snaps for the Bears. Yeah. People have kind of been raving about Smith, to be honest. A lot of the coaches call him Smitty, and a couple of coaches got asked who they're most excited to see when they put the pads on, and a couple of coaches said Smitty. So there was a bit of buzz around him. I know he was also a person that as soon as he got drafted, a lot of players went, the Bears just got a good one. So he's a name to watch. I honestly think just because of the whole draft thing, I would lean that a lot of the players, I would honestly lean to say that the players drafted this year are all locks. Maybe if you get into the 7th round, like a Travis Bell, I would understand. But I would say that Smith is almost for sure a lock, unless maybe he gets hurt. Vildor is probably going to make the team, absolutely. Especially considering he's good depth and he started in the NFL a lot. He's absolutely going to make the team. I don't know if he's a lock. I would understand that, especially if maybe a better cornerback became available through a cut. But as it stands right now, the Bears are have no intention of moving forward with anyone but Vildor in that spot, I would say. And then Blackwell played good on special teams. He played good when he got the chance to play, I think, in the Green Bay game last year near the end of the year. I'm not exactly sure, but he had a couple. Maybe it was the Buffalo game, or maybe, you know what? I think it was the Eagles game.
Yeah, but I can't remember. But yeah, it's certainly possible. But I do remember him standing out in one game.
Yeah. So I think he makes it. Jalen Jones probably is the odd man out of that group. Strowman and Ojemudia are, I would say those guys probably verge on camp bodies. If there's a chance that either of them hear this, I'm so sorry I said that, guys.
I don't think they're listening to this podcast, but yeah, I think they probably are camp bodies. Yeah, I think Jalen Jones is kind of the guy who could unseat Blackwell or Vildor, probably Blackwell. But yeah, this is an interesting group, I feel like, because this group, I feel like, has a high variance of what we could expect this year. They could be this could be a bad group. Yeah. If Kyle Gordon doesn't take a step forward, and if Tyreek Stevenson has a rookie adjustment period, or maybe just isn't the guy. Same thing with Terrell Smith. It could be really bad, but it also could be really good.
I know.
If Kyle Gordon turns into the guy that we thought we were getting when we drafted him in the 2nd round, and Tyreek Stevenson comes in and is a really good man corner that he showed in college, then it could be a really good group. But I think it could be bad, it could be good, it could be anywhere in between. I don't really know what to expect. It'll be interesting to watch.
This would be one that I would be surprised if they add talent and free agency, just because I think they probably like the talent they have in the room. I think a betting man would say it ends up being Johnson, Stevenson, Gordon, Smith, Vildor, Jones. But I would agree. I think I liked more from what I've seen from Blackwell. I think I'd like him to be given that shot. A lot of it hinges on Jalen Johnson. If he's good, the rest of the unit look good, and he can be good. He's shown flashes of being absolutely able to do what you want your CB1 in the NFL to do. And then sometimes he disappears and he's not a playmaker, which hurts his overall value as well. But if you get the best of Jalen Johnson, that unit could be really, really strong. Gordon started to show like he was turning a corner near the end of the year. It's one of the harder positions in the league to go in and play like hard stop. And then as a rookie, it's, it can get really, really hard. But if Stevenson is even a little bit serviceable, he plays a really similar game to what we saw from Sauce Gardner last year. He likes getting physical with people. He's a long corner. There's a blueprint for success early in a career like that. And if he's even serviceable, the unit could be pretty strong.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah. But again, if Johnson gets injured or maybe just continues to be a little bit inconsistent, it could be rough. But this defense as a whole, I think, is kind of like that. Like, we know the defensive line's not going to be great. The linebackers, I think, are good, but there's a lot of high variance on this defense.
It didn't look like the Bears. It looked like the Bears typical Pace said, we're not going to overspend for any position to me. We're never going to pay more than what we think the market value is. But on top of that, it looks like with their resources this offseason, they said we're going to make sure that the offense looks good. And if that means that maybe we don't address perfectly some positions in the defense that we understand aren't the strongest, that's the nature of the beast.
And I love that mindset.
I do too. It's really good team building. It's patience. They've left themselves in a position where they can capitalize on the best players getting cut. They still have money in the pocket to sign their players and to sign any good players that maybe become available. And they've set themselves up in a way where they didn't sign big contracts into the future this year, where they'll have a strong and healthy cap again next year.
Yeah, I think it also sets yourself up where in a few years down the road, when you have started to build through the draft and you have a solid roster kind of from top to bottom, then it puts you in a position where you can maybe overpay for someone on a 1-year deal or short-term deal to kind of put you over the top. But I don't think overpaying at this point takes you from maybe like a 7-8 win team to an 8-9 win team. And it's what's the point of that?
Yeah, and it hurts you going forward.
Right. All right, so the last one is safety. So this is one that I thought last year they kept 4. Obviously, Eddie Jackson, Jaquan Brisker, total locks. I have Elijah Hicks and Agent Colbert as the probables because Hicks was a draft pick last year, played sparingly but didn't look terrible, and Colbert has starting experience and special teams experience, is more of a veteran. So I put them there, and then you have Williamson, who was another one of their 7th-round draft picks this year. A 7th-round draft pick. They kept 4 last year. They have 4 guys who have experience. I put him in the camp battle. He could certainly beat out Colbert or a Hicks, if he comes out and plays well in the preseason. But right now, I kind of have him in that cut/camp battle tier.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen them kind of do something about retaining some of the talent they had in this group. Like DeAndre Houston Carson, I'd be fine with them giving him $3 million every year until he dies.
Right. Strong special teams player.
And honestly, anytime we've asked him to step in, he's been totally serviceable. Like, that's kind of exactly what you want for a body like this, someone that maybe can even jump in and play. Like you said, a bunch of special teams. When you need him to play on defense, he's never going to be the guy that sinks your ship. Maybe this is a group that you'd like to add a veteran presence. Eddie Jackson is the veteran in that room. He's honestly, at this point, the veteran on that defense. Right. But maybe just something where, we have 2 guys that I'm very confident are going to be great starters in the NFL this year. I really believe in Eddie Jackson, and I really believe in Jaquan Brisker. But after that, I don't know if there's a quality safety on the roster.
I agree.
That's a little bit worrisome.
It's one injury to Jackson or Brisker away from being really bad. A veteran. Colbert is a veteran, has some experience, but he's really nothing special. A veteran who actually has like real experience and can come in and play special teams. We're literally described to DeAndre Houston Carson. Like, that would have been perfect. It was kind of funny when I was going through the roster today, and I was like, oh, that's right. I forgot DeAndre Houston Carson's not on the team because he's just been there forever.
Has that been, man?
I don't even know, for a long time.
Oh, you
just look it up.
He played in the Bears since 2016.
Yeah, so it was weird just not
seeing Nagy.
Yeah, he survived 2 regimes. He got into a 3rd regime, and so it's weird not seeing him. So it actually be a guy like that would be perfect. I don't know if he signed to someone already. If he did, maybe I'm sure there's someone else with kind of his experience.
Oh, he's still free agent.
Still free agent. So yeah, maybe that's a guy you bring in. Maybe if there's an injury in training camp, he might be a guy you look into.
No, I agree. I don't think there's a chance that maybe come August they say, you know what, DeAndre, we'd still like to have you back.
Yeah, we'll give you $1 million. Come back. And then last thing, I have the specialist. This one's pretty straightforward too. Carlos Santos, Trent Gill, Scales. I don't see any way that changes. They gave the backup kicker number 37. That's not a very good sign.
It's pretty much all you need to know, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, once you get yourself a good long snapper that you like from an organizational standpoint, you pretty much don't part with him until he's like, arthritic in the knees kind of thing. So I don't think there's any chance that Scales moves on. They look like they like him, and it looks like him and Gill have a good relationship. So I think those guys are locks. Gill had a good year for us last year.
Yeah.
And
Santos is a solid kicker.
I could imagine maybe that the Bears would think about trying to improve that position somehow. But the path towards doing so is probably something that they would do next off season. He's been fairly consistent for them. Inside 40,
Yeah.
he's been money. And if the
Right.
Bears offense gets better like we expect them to this year, it wouldn't be a huge deal if you don't have a guy that can bang through the 55-yard if you need it. So I think those are probably locks. I would imagine the Bears probably sooner than later though will be looking at trying to improve that position. There was a good tweet
For
the other
sure.
day that said team building is when you realize that you try and get rid of players a year before they start to decline, as opposed to a year
Right.
after they start to decline. I think they were talking about Darren Waller when they did it. And I think that you probably could think that about Santos right now. But then again, he had a couple of bad seasons before he got to the Bears and kind of got hot when he got here. So who knows? I think that I agree that as it stands right now, those guys are locks for the roster.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything really to talk about there. I think that pretty much covers everything. Anything else we want to add before we hop off here? Anything else? Anything specific? Maybe it's not even player wise you're looking for in training camp, coaching wise, anything?
This is a way more competitive roster this year than it was last year. And not to mention last year there was a sense of when the Bears got to training camp, it was like this team isn't going to do much.
Yeah.
No, they're not going to be great. There's a world where the Bears are a really good football team this year. I think there's a world where the Bears are a competitive football team this year. Like we said, like a perfect world would be the Bears are never in a game where you think they don't have a chance, and I think that can be true with the roster that we see there. If they influx just a little bit more talent, like we said, with maybe some cuts or just adding some veterans, I think that's a really exciting group heading into training camp.
Yeah, I think there's a world where this is a really good offense.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a world where this is a really good team because I think their defense is frankly going to be bad again. They improved the linebacker play, the cornerbacks, like I mentioned with the cornerbacks, it's just really depending on a lot of things breaking right. So even if the cornerbacks would just settle into like that middle of the road with good linebackers, that defensive line just isn't good enough to take care of. So I think this is going to be a bottom tier defense.
Yeah,
and I think the offense has
last year.
Right. Your worst defensive football, you added an off-ball linebacker, a rookie second-round pick, and that's pretty much it.
No, I mean, I would say this. There's no way you could argue that the cornerback room did anything but get better. All the best people returned, and we added more talent. You can't argue that the safety room got anything but the same, which is fine.
Right.
The linebacker group got way better. It might be one of the best in the NFL now. The defensive tackle room got way better. Well, not way better, but I mean, it's pretty hard to be worse than it was.
I do like Andrew Billings a lot. I think he's going to be a solid player for them.
Yeah, on top of two fairly high draft picks for the room, there's some good athletes with some good competition in that room. You should be a little bit more excited about that than you were last year. Our defensive ends still suck, but we traded, Robert Quinn last year, and our defensive ends sucked. So
yeah,
I think that the defense won't be worse. You can't be worse than last. And if the offense is marginally better, we lost how many? 8, 9 games in one-score games last year.
Right.
Having a little bit better defense and a way better offense could turn the tide in a lot of those.
No, 100% agree. I'm really excited to watch this offense. I think they have something there. They have some potential. Obviously, a lot's gonna ride on Justin Fields' shoulders, but it's been a while since I felt like this about a Bears offense.
Seriously,
it's always been like, oh, we just have to be good enough so our defense can carry us. Now it's like, okay,
right.
Offense has a chance to be. I would say offense has a chance to be a top 12 offense.
Top 10.
Top
really
10
good.
maybe. Yeah, I almost went top 10. I went top 12, just gonna hedge my bets a little bit, but it's certainly in the realm of possibility. Is it the most likely outcome? No, maybe they probably fall in that 12 to 15 range.
Yeah.
Which would still be a huge upgrade for what they had. They were at what, 23rd, 25th, something like that, in like points per game.
So, yeah, I think if the offensive line, like we talked about, if it moves in the right direction and it's even marginally better than it was last year, another year in the offense for a lot of these players and an influx of new talent at the running back and wide receiver position, I think the offense could be a lot of fun. Like people. We saw Anthony Richardson go 4th overall to the Colts this year with like these aspirations of what an offense with him could look like. And I think it looks something like what the Bears are going to put forward this year. Like Justin is every bit the athlete that Anthony Richardson is. And if You believe that he's a good thrower of the football, which he has shown he absolutely is, but even though maybe not in the NFL. If the offensive line plays well, I think the blueprint is there for a really, really fun offensive team.
Yeah, for sure. This is going to be a fun offensive team, regardless of where they finish in the rankings, top 10, top 12, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's still going to be just a fun team to watch. Justin Fields is going to be making plays. Justin Fields to DJ Moore is going to be a great combo.
Tyler Scott and Darnell Mooney taking the top off the defense.
Right. The run game, 3 solid running backs, really deep running back room with a better offensive line. I think it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun. And this in training camp specifically, it's sometimes hard to judge in training camp. Preseason is a little bit better, but still kind of hard to judge, especially like offensive line play, running back play, stuff like that. But it's still just going to be fun. I'm actually going to be at training camp August 9th. So I was only able to get tickets to one day because Bears fans are animals and got all the tickets sucked up in like 5 seconds. But I will be at training camp. Yeah, excitement's there. I will be at training camp August 9th, so I'm excited to kind of see what they do. I'll tweet out my thoughts, and hopefully I get to meet some Bears fans too, because that's always fun.
Totally. And also seeing them in person really gives you a good, you can hear people say, oh, XXX looks really good this year. But then you get out and you see why they think that and how they're moving as opposed to the other people on the team. You're like, no, we actually might have something in some of these players. I think I'm excited. Man. I think, like I said, if the offense is as good as we think, the offense should be at a place where, at the very least, it gives you the hope that you can compete in any game this year. And if the Bears can do that, it'll be a long shot from what we've had for the last few years.
Exactly. I think that's a good starting point for this year. And then hopefully next year, we're talking a little bit more high praises for the entire team, not just the offense.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where the Bears are at in this kind of, I don't want to call it a rebuild, soft rebuild, whatever you want to call it. But we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah.
You can see the signs of progress as we go forward. So, all right. Is that it? We got anything else? I think that's it.
A good clean hour.
You. Yeah, just right at the hour. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Make sure to like, subscribe if you haven't already. Retweet, share, all that stuff. Follow us on Twitter. We really appreciate everyone's support. Make sure to
check out the sponsor.
Check out the sponsor, 366 Golf. Use promo code CFC, 15% off your order. I'll put the link in the description as well. Honestly, I'm not saying this because I get money if you purchase it. The apparel is actually really cool, and I wear it all the time. So really, definitely, you want to check that out. If you're a golfer, even if you're not a golfer, I wear this stuff all the time.
Yeah, seriously, especially a nice 3/4 zip, man.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
No brainer.
So, all right. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you next week. We think we have something planned. We'll keep everyone up to date on that. So talk to everyone next week. Bear down, everyone.
Bear down.